connected this dimension relates to time, sort of the opposite flow of time. You want to just briefly talk about it?
Yes, well, I think time is obviously there, but there's something else I see is connected.
I got a beer over there. Actually.
Not too long ago, and I was talking to the people interviewing me, and they heard this like banging at my door, and it was like my little tiny cat trying to break in, and they're like, "Is someone trying to break into your house?"
You're live, okay?
Oh shoot.
No, that's okay. We just started. You're live.
All right.
All right, cool. So again, good morning, good evening. I'm Sascha Seifert. I'm from Germany. I'm a filmmaker. I'm involved with TSC for over a decade now. I'm a friend of Stuart. I usually do a little program called Consciousness Central, live from TSC. So the virus changed everything. Here we go. It's a little, as far as I understood, reflection, debate, discussion on what is happening in what the conference officially calls C24. Great you're all here, and I would suggest everybody introduces himself real quick, and then we have a conversation.
Sorry, just a second. I'm in C23, so am I in the wrong place?
Well, it depends on. But this is officially this is for C24, as far as I understood. So then you might be. But I'm not familiar with the entire.
Am I in the right place, or is there another room for us?
Well, I haven't double checked how many rooms there are. So
okay,
he's in the same as ours.
I think it's fair to say that you're welcome.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
I mean, you're very happy to join us.
I'll join you. You seem like a good party. I'll join you.
No, you're in the right one. You're in the right role. Because we were both in the same video screen, and this is the only link they send out for it.
That's
so
right.
You're in the right.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. You're the mediumship guy. That's right.
But I see a lot of very interesting backgrounds from everybody, so I'm looking forward to hear more. It's very nice. So should we start with a quick round of introductions?
That's great.
So should I call you, like, who want, or do we just do the round? So yeah, let's start with Alan, maybe.
Yeah, howdy. Hi, I'm Alan Macy, and my first time at TSC, and I come out of the world of biomedical engineering, research and development director at a biomedical engineering company, and I work with performing emotional and motivational state measurements on people. And I'm also an applied science artist, and I've been working recently with Mark David Hosel, who will be, he's also here, and I'm sure introduce himself later. All right, pleasure.
All right, thanks. Alex, you want to be next?
Yeah, sure. Okay. I'm Alexander Grauer from Turin, Italy. I'm fresh retired from university, and I have a PhD on composition musicology, and then PhD in medicine, psychiatry, and what I'm doing is research. I'm with TSC from 2009, 11 years. I'm mostly interested in application in therapy, music as a science, not as entertainment. And in this presentation, I prepared a video with a soundtrack. Now, the video is about microtubule resonance as a musical vocabulary and grammar. And the soundtrack, it's a piece I wrote for therapy for attention deficit based on the research of Anirban Bandyopadhyay on microtubules resonance. And he sent to me some data, and I work in presentations about this work. I present also all the compositional work and the score. And who will watch the video I prepared can listen to the result. I'm more practical oriented. I'm in music and therapy. My method of neurotherapy, music-based, music integrative neurotherapy. I think it's enough. The presentation is there for all to see. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Alex. I just wanted to ask Leo, but Leo, are you back?
Leah's ready. Sure.
Okay, so
my name is, ready?
Yeah, go ahead.
My name is Leo Madrid, broadcasting live from a room we call the Inner Space Station. I do installations. I've been doing installations, art and science installations at festivals like Burning Man Pre-Compression. I've done Sand Conference, Maker Fair, World's Fair, and it's all been leading up to actually what you see here, which is what we believe to be the world's first true hybrid quantum computer with brain-machine interface. And this is actually a transhumanist project as well, as the operating system has been integrated with my own DNA. And I call this biodynamic quantum computing. It's like a computing environment where when you walk in, you become part of the operating system. And in addition to this unit up here, this is a very high performance supercomputer that's actually been outfitted with 9 electron tunneling devices, which were very similar to this down here. This unit down here is actually what I call the ethospheric modulator. And that also has 10 quantum devices in it, which uses electron tunneling to generate the data that you're looking at. I created this design and believe this is a coherence detector, and with a little bit of development, we can pull measurements out of this that will allow us to measure non-kinetic time dilation. So this provides for a unification point between consciousness, the laws of relativity, and quantum mechanics. We have listed and claimed about 15 different claims in a press release, and we're inviting artists, scientists from all over the world to take a look at, to validate or help us improve on our technology and presentation. This is currently utilizing brainwaves. We can utilize like an EEG, brainwave signals going into meditative states with entrainment devices, blinking lights and sound, sending our brain waves to the computer, combining them with the onboard electron tunneling devices for machine learning algorithms. We are currently doing tests on the D-Wave, which incorporates the Global Consciousness Project, EGGS, and also integrating this with a geolocation application with the XYO network, which is on the Ethereum blockchain. So we have tied this with a algorithm to the actual price of Ethereum. And so there's a lot of different applications with this, but this is, I think, a good blending of art and science together in a way that is hypnotic. If you were here in this place, what we are talking about wouldn't seem maybe so out there, because with the signals and the signs coming through here, you can actually see how your consciousness affects it. And we can make music with this, movies and all kinds of things. So if you check out our website, haloai.me, we've got samples, growing samples there, and then of course our submission videos.
Oh, thank you, spectacular, thank you. So Olga, you want to be next, please?
Yes, sure. Hi, I'm Olga Colbert. I'm a literature professor. I'm interested in issues of history, popular culture, memory, and lately of cognitive approaches to literature. My presentation here was about inner speech and autobiographical memory in the works of several Spanish and Latin American authors. And 2 of the texts dealt with the experience of reading. And one is a poem from 17th century Spanish author Quevedo, and there's also a short story from Argentinian author Cortázar, Julio Cortázar. I also look at a short story that deals with the experience of reading and also the experience of writing, mostly, by a Spanish author, contemporary author. And lastly, I looked at a novel in which inner speech is used mostly to give us an insight into autobiographic memory of this author. And it's a type of a neural novel. It's about the workings of the mind. And the interesting thing about this novel is that there's no other characters outside of the mind that we see, and it's faulty. So we realized after a few hundred pages that what we're reading is not necessarily reliable. So that makes it an interesting read. And I'm interested in seeing what literature and science can learn from each other.
Very interesting.
Thank you, Olga.
Thank you.
Mark David, you want to introduce yourself, please?
Sure. My name is Mark David Hosel. I'm an associate professor and chair of computational arts at York University in Toronto, Canada. So hello from Canada. I'm a computational artist and composer. So I have a background in music composition and theory with an emphasis in electronic music. And I guess how I would describe a computational artist is someone who uses the systems and computational thinking as a means and mode of expression. However, a lot of my work is physical. So I make installations and architectural scale and to object scale. And I've been working with Alan Macy for several years now on, as he was explaining, working with emotional state data. So working with new modes of interactivity that promote human connectivity, self-awareness, and and in order to develop like artistically expressive systems that respond to your emotive inclination.
Thank you, Mark David. Oh, well, next picture shows Tatiana. Would you let us know a little bit about yourself, please?
Yes, I will. I'm Tatiana Ginsburg. I'm from Russia, and currently I'm in St. Petersburg, and it's almost middle of the night here. But I'm glad to be with you. I've been in several conscious conference. I'm transpersonal psychologist, PhD in transpersonal psychology. And I'm very involved in spiritual community in Russia and in US. I've done a informal frontier project Russian House in California. So actually my talk is about consciousness cognition. It's called Embracing the Unbraceable. So I'm assuming that to conceive the consciousness is quite difficult, and it's actually philosophy talk mainly in ontology of consciousness. Maybe my style is to looks like art, so it was put in art tech health story, but I would be very glad to answer any question about the topic of consciousness cognition. That's all for now.
Thank you, Tatiana. Then I see very, very nice gongs hanging behind two nice people laughing at us. The name says Michelle, but we have a gentleman with a beard in the picture. So maybe Michelle is the person to the right.
No, yes, I'm Michelle. He's Ron. And
okay, hi Ron as well. Hi Ron on Michelle's account.
Hi, it's great to be here. Together we are the Art of Gong, and we put up a video from a collection of pictures and our sounds. We play the gongs and halo flutes. We've been doing sound meditation for over 10 years now.
Lovely. Thank you very much.
I don't know if anybody saw the video because we don't speak to anybody at this conference. So it was kind of hard for us to find it, even though we created it. But
I did find it and I loved it. So
thank you.
yeah, Shoshana, you want to be next? Did I spell the name right?
It was
Otherwise,
beautiful. Yeah, Shoshana. My other name's Bryn, so it gets confusing. I have 2 first names, 2 last names. But yeah, I'm just absolutely honored to be part of this. My background's in literature, so I did my PhD at Oxford, but just watching you guys and reading your abstracts, it's just I've been so inspired. So my work, the presentation I submitted is on Mary Shelley's Frankenstein and looking at notions of consciousness and compassion in the novel. It's part of a wider project called Books, Brains, and Benevolence. So I'm looking at empathy and compassion through the lenses of philosophy and psychology and neuroscience. So the presentation itself looks at, so one main thing is synesthesia in the novel. So the creature, or the monster, when he's first born, actually through the language you see, actually presents as having synesthesia as we do when we're children. So there's this confusion of senses when he's really young. And so the novel itself is kind of this expedited version of evolution. He goes through sort of the same life stages that we go through, but then ultimately a question about consciousness and what it means to be conscious and aware, and whether this creature who has been created artificially is able to experience what we experience. So it is just an ultimate investigation of the science of consciousness. I don't want to take up too much time though, so I will stop there, and I'm so excited to hear more from all of you.
thank you very much. That's big words, you know, the ultimate exploration of the science of consciousness. I love that. Elizabeth, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, please?
Hello, yeah, I'm Elizabeth, and I'm an undergraduate student at Arizona State University. I study medicinal biochemistry, but I've also been very interested in consciousness, specifically in the brain. So I do some research at the Neurodegenerative Disease Research Center at ASU's Biodesign. And yeah, I do 2D digital and traditional visual art on a lot of different kind of science-inspired topics, but I also really enjoy doing artworks about consciousness and kind of bringing in sort of a surreal and creative aspect to a discussion of how topics such as quantum physics, you know, philosophy, etc., are, you know, connected. And so yeah. Oh, and also I didn't realize that we would be given the opportunity to panel here, so I do have to head out at 7:30, but I also left my contact information in the presentation and I can put it in the chat, so for later if anyone has any extra questions.
I liked your use of alternating values and symmetry in your artwork.
Thank you. Yeah, and also yeah, I really love bringing kind of like a very colorful and bold style, and I think it really helps me in my goal of sort of I really want to use sort of this interesting surreal style to define the essence of humanity, and that's kind of, yeah, part of my goals. So
All right, thank you, Elizabeth.
yeah,
Anna, you are next, please.
Okay. Hi, I'm Anna. I live in Madrid, in Spain, and I teach at the Faculty of Fine Arts at the Complutense University. So my background is a little mixed, but mainly in fine arts, although I have had a constant interest in consciousness. And right now, my line of research is specifically altered states of consciousness, modifications in consciousness and art, and also a little bit of anomalous cognition. I'm focusing especially on Susan Hiller, as you've seen in the theoretical presentation. And I also am a visual artist.
Great, thank you. Last but not least, Mark. Good morning, Mark. Please tell us a little bit. The gentleman who's also known as tennis-centric.
Hi, Sascha. Thank you. I didn't realize I was stepping into a panel.
That's okay.
And I missed the early part of it. So, yeah, so I've been honored to be able to contribute this tennis-centric approach to consciousness, which is basically an experiential approach. Sort of like yoga is a meditational art form. The idea is, you can use tennis as a hitting discipline to, understand the role of the mind and become aware of consciousness as it's sort of, as you're experiencing it, which is fundamental to understanding it, since it's the primacy of, the experience. Chalmers' formulation. And I've been a longtime student of consciousness. I studied neuroscience at Amherst College, and then sort of went in the direction of independent study. I just basically wanted to have my own pathway into it. And so tennis was a teaching discipline. Learning behaviors were in place, and I felt like I could just move within the domain of my own curiosity by funding my own research and study. And I don't know if I've harvested anything, but the idea was to sort of go to the science of consciousness and sort of learn everything that I could. And my approach was to sort of read broadly across fields, which I'd learned to do at Amherst. Infinite Jest, yeah, that was David Foster Wallace was my tennis partner at Amherst. And much of the dialogue that, I'm entertaining is, part of that journey. And the Trapinski gasket, which is in the tennis-centric videos, is a reference to that. So thank you, Shoshana Bryn Jones Square, for asking that question. But I'm so appreciative that Abby and Stuart have been able to pull this together and include elements like me, who, essentially a lay element coming into an academic community, without any kind of vested interest, but just the desire to have a good explanation. And part of harvesting, I think the essence of the experience, which I think, Sascha, you've been privy to, is that you see it as an observer, which I think this referential aspect in consciousness, which is really the qualitative state, nobody's having the Sascha experience, and we're all in this sort of social community together to try to understand it, really a remarkable contribution. So I'm just here as a fan, really. So thanks.
Thank you, Mark. So thank you very much for the first round of introductions. We have approximately like 20 something minutes left. What I just found as an overall theme, what just came to my mind, where it came from, is playfulness, which seems to kind of, from my perspective, unite us in our own unique ways. I'm pretty much open to how the rest of the session goes. So is there any particular need to ask questions between each of you, or does anybody wants to add something which then maybe not ends up in another 20-minute monologue or something? Or how do we proceed? Any suggestions or anything? I mean, we are kind of maybe the last session, if you leave out the consciousness, the blues and the entertainment. So this is kind of a little bit of a chance to wrap it up. So we are a little bit in a very exclusive position as well. So yeah, what do we do with it? Any suggestions or anything? Yeah, sure. Go ahead, Leo.
Question?
Sure, go ahead.
Oh, I have a question for Mark David and the music. You mentioned that you were creating things that respond to emotive inclinations. And could you go into further detail on what those are, how you measure and translate that to music?
To music, well, I don't know if I'd use the term music. So I think music's always part of most of the work I do, but it's more about sonification. So one of the challenges of the work we're doing, so and Alan might have something to say about it too, but the basically what we do is we measure people's biophysiology, and a lot of our work has been around the heart, and from the heart we can extract heart rate, which can be an indicator of excitement or arousal, and your heart rate variability, which can be an indicator of, you know, how calm or meditative you feel. And from these vectors, you can assess more or less a region of how pleasant or unpleasant someone's feeling. And so if someone has high arousal and negative valence, then they're in kind of the zone of angry. And if they have a low arousal and a negative valence, then they're kind of in the zone of depression or sadness. Although, you know, how we define those terms individually may be different and subjective. So a lot of the work is about finding these states and then trying to find ways to express them through audiovisual means and haptics, and then use these in order to create experiences where people can connect to each other. And so I don't know, Alan, maybe you want to add to that.
Well, I guess if I just had to think of the recent historical origin of this work, it would start with Frankenstein, pretty much, I think. It's all related to like extensions of the human nervous system and basically the charge carriers that occur in our body, and the basically electricity that's moving around, and it's being transported, in this case here, using sophisticated tools like amplifiers and whatnot to extract this sort of deep kind of emotional, motivational state data, but then allow it to be transmitted to some other space. It's a kind of a form of communication that's mediated by charge carriers in our body, but then allowed to be expressed so that deeper meaning could be reflected in the course of our communications.
So I really like the Frankenstein theme that's going on. And I kind of am a Frankenstein because if you watch my video, I made a comment several years ago. I had a traumatic brain injury that resulted in 100% retrograde amnesia. And it was a complete wipe. And so I've had to rebuild my life from there, starting from literally zero. And that's when I became a consciousness researcher. And that result, I'm conducting right now non-invasive brain surgery on myself. And so I have a measurable, I'm a veteran, Navy veteran, and so I go through the VA. I have a measurable beta wave deficiency where I'm using electromagnets, TMS, to actually increase my beta waves. And it's done some pretty amazing stuff to my consciousness in a very measurable way. And so I kind of am a walking Frankenstein.
Shoshana, you expressed so much enthusiasm.
I'm pretty excited.
You want to share a little bit what makes you so enthusiastic?
I love it all. And yeah, just the idea, because everything I talk about, like my dissertation is kind of like everything is Frankenstein. So this idea of this sort of, she starts with this small little idea, and then she says in the novel, I bid my hideous progeny go forth and prosper. So that's her introduction to the novel. And so it's referring to the novel itself, but also to the creature or monster, but also to the idea that just like once you let it out in the world, it's like this uncontrollable thing, and then it's branching off like fractals. So it's coming out in different forms, and so it's just constantly sort of branching outwards, which is amazing. But just all of this stuff that you're doing is sort of like applying all of my ideas, but actually doing something concrete with them. So if I can be best friends with every one of you and participate in anything you're doing, I would love that so much. But yeah, I also had a question. It was, am I pronouncing right, Anna? It was about Well, everything you're doing is so cool. But more about like, so do you talk about prophecy as well as telepathy and that sort of thing? Because Frankenstein, as well as all of Mary Shelley's novels, are about prophecy as like a form of intense empathy or attuneness to the world. So I don't know if you're around, Anna, but I don't know if you could say more about that because I'm taking up too much time. I'm going to mute myself. Thank you, guys.
So if I did I get it well? You asking me about prophecy, like, you know, prophetic inspiration?
Yeah, if there's any connection between prophecy and telepathy and that sort of thing.
Yeah, well, there's precognition would be a way to prophesize, right? But specifically regarding my specific subject in this conference, I was dealing with automatic writing, which is not exactly prophecy, which is more in this very specific case as well related to personal subconscious or unconscious, I'm sorry. So it's more into this is my stuff. If I do connect with anything, it could be the collective unconscious in a Jungian sense, but it's certainly in this specific case is not referring to any prophetic abilities. Rather, if you have to look somewhere in a timeline, you should have to be looking backwards, not forwards. Not in this case, all right? Of course, I'm very interested in all these kinds of things, but in the specific work I'm bringing here, there's no prophetic writing.
Absolutely. No, I love, yeah, and just the idea of automatic writing. Have you looked at like James Joyce? I watched most of your thing, James Joyce and Virginia Woolf, on like also stream of consciousness and stuff. I don't want to take up too much time, but I would love to talk to you more after this.
Yeah, okay, great, let's do it.
Okay, I'm muting myself again.
Sascha.
Yeah.
I wonder if
Yeah,
if I may respond, if Penrose's quantum entanglement, you know, the idea of retrocausality constituting a form of prophetic writing.
Was that a question to me or to the
Well,
chat?
in general, to the field. I mean, we were talking about prophetic writing. I didn't want to be dismissive of it, and I thought that was really a remarkable talk today, where he's basically describing within the Planck scale, you know, a backwards time effect, and choosing from the future, the now, you know. I wondered if anybody wanted to comment on that. Okay, Shoshana, you brought it up, but I don't want to be dismissive of it. I think it's, you know, it's really super cool that, you know, that was on the table. And
Definitely, yeah. It just came to mind just because, yeah, Mary Shelley's work is all about, every one of them, about the importance of empathy and an awareness of consciousness and self, and sort of arguing that there needs to be this dissolving of the egoic self in order to truly empathize with another. And so she uses ideas of dreaming and writing to sort of talk about that idea of the necessity of sort of pushing back the self in order to empathize with others. And so we can have like a training in empathy through reading and listening to music and all of that stuff. So, but then the idea with prophecy, yeah, it's all this idea that it's a form of being incredibly attuned to the universe itself. You're so attuned to it that you're able to sort of predict what's happening in the future. But yeah, the idea to mix it with like entanglement, quantum entanglement and stuff. I've been looking into it, but I'm not an expert. I know nothing. So you guys have to teach me everything I know. But what about you? Did you have more to say about it, Mark?
No, I was just commenting on, I thought that was really a remarkable talk by Roger Penrose today, you know, and I don't know, you know, how others felt about it, but it's always mind-boggling, you know, for a seminal mathematician to sort of define it, you know. I mean, it is the Frankenstein, really, you know. I think that was delineated here. That and the idea that, the persisting idea that, you know, a macro event, you know, can induce a quantum effect, you know, in which these possibilities, you know, are sort of.
Mark, there are a lot of interesting people here. let's speak about ourselves. For example, I'm transpersonal psychologist, so I think that the way to study consciousness is the best way, the right way is through you instead of, I've been the mathematician before, and there is still some, I want to present something like puzzles in my transpersonal psychology comes from my mathematical background, which we do a lot of puzzle work. Yeah, hi Uzi, hi Uri. But you know, the best way is to look inside and to use a lot of practices like holotropic breath work, rebirthing, include a lot of music, a lot of the quantum lamp in order to get whole consciousness, to understand whole consciousness, conceive whole consciousness. And I think it's more direct way. Anyone else wants to add something?
So I think a common theme that I've noticed here is a separation between theorists and experimentalists and artists. And that, I think, is one of the biggest divisions in the forward progress of humanity right now. And they're like, the world is currently digressing into a state of global war. And people are sitting around arguing about conceptual theories that can't be tested in any way in our lifetimes. And I think we really need to come together as a community and look at just what Ginsberg just said, you know, look at who's in front of you. Get your head out of the math books, because that's not really going to where the answers are. The answers are in practical applications. And we need, and people, the way to convey these ideas to people is through art and through music and through dance and through community. It's not ever going to be through a formula. And so we have to bring all of these people together, and they will understand consciousness. We have expanded the consciousness of thousands of people with the equipment that you see here through art events, and introduced them to mindfulness. And we've taught hundreds of kids how to meditate with their parents. And it's cool, they enjoy it. And until we can bring that out and take what we're all talking about out of the our living rooms and out into the public, that division will continue, I believe. And this is not anything new. This goes back, Tesla wrote about it 100 years ago. And it's probably, the problem is getting worse before it gets better. And one of the reasons is the ultimate quest for the, I mean, this got some brilliant people here in this conference, but everybody's on the quest for the next Nobel Prize, and they can't see beyond their own personal aspirations. And I think we have to, that's where I kind of, that maybe that's just my military background, but I think we all have to come together rather than thinking of what are we doing individually as like, where am I, where do I stand in the collective? Because none of us should be alone. And I know that we are currently all being isolated alone, but I think we should walk out of this not wondering what we're all going to do next year, but rather how we're all going to work together over the next year to make sure we all have something significant to report rather than our own individual progress over the last year. I think I've said enough. Thank you.
I may, Sascha.
Alex, you want to add something, or do I misinterpret your signs? Go
Yeah.
ahead.
Thank you. I think I'm talking about music. What I'm doing is applied neuroscience of music. And for example, in my method of neurotherapy, I'm composing therapeutic material based on the medical data of each patient. Now, each and every psychiatric disturb provokes in the body and the organism specific disturbances that are evident, starting with the blood, urine, and analysis to the most interesting test, psychological test. Now, I published in '98, some 22 years ago, the result of my study, which lasted for some years, each part of our brain first, physiological mechanics, resonates to specific frequencies. But attention, for example, the most important, which is the thalamus, resonates to D, but not to one frequency of D, to all the frequencies of D. And this is the gate to our mind, if you want. And for example, in classical music, Western classical music, but it's valid in the music of all the world, the D, some kind of D in a tonal system, temperate music, Bach, toccata, and all the celebrated violin concerts are in D, some kind of. This is one example. There are 7 points in our organism that resonates to different. Now, things are more complicated, obviously, but in my research and application, I applied it in therapy on more than 30 years. If you want to go to one specific point, you can do it by composing the music. Now, important to start from the beginning. What is music? Music is a complex phenomenon and as consciousness. And all the complex phenomenon does not support and cannot support one definition, exhaustive definition. There are, I'd like to make a comparison with the perfectly cut diamond. How can you define the diamond? It's a stone, yes. It's made by carbon, yes. Does it have any values? Tell you. Lady's best friend. And it depends. So in my opinion, music, it's here enter another thing. It's a difference between sound and music. It's a very great and disseminated confusion between sound and music. Music is made by sounds, but sound itself is not music. If you consider the sound as a brick, well, a pile of brick, whatever huge, doesn't make a building. You have first of all to know what kind of building you want, then to draw the blueprints, then start to dig the foundation, and then you use the bricks. And in the end, you have a structure, but it's not enough. You have to make the plumbing, and so on. In the end, you have your the building you want. This moment is music. So making some sounds is not music, not yet. You have to organize. And if you know what is your target, you can organize the music, the architecture of music, building of music, according to what you want to do. It's what I'm doing, certified 40. And you can obtain the results. And mostly in therapy, I'm very, very practical oriented. I mean, all the theories are very good and very productive and very useful. But in the end, we have to apply them. I'm applying it in as working as a psychiatrist. It's my method. So what I want to say about Frankenstein and other things, exactly in Frankenstein, if you take it's will you direct the forces? What are the points on our cortex, on our brain, and in our body that we want to reach and to activate? So music written based on this data, and that's why for me, the discovery of microtubules resonance was basic, because it's exactly this. Each organ, each point resonates to determined frequency. So all the frequencies take count of the fact that nature does not exist temperate system. The nature is non-temperated, microtonal or whatever you want to call. So at this point, it's basic to work with electronic equipment, because we can have it very precise. Now, there are ancient systems, musical systems, Chinese, Indian, and Byzantine music, which are very well coded. For example, in Byzantine music, we have 32 division of a tone. You know, so this is one of the most deviating thing is that most people are considering the temperate system, which is an artificial one, was created. It's mathematical. It's not natural. And this is related to the production of instruments and other things, because you have to have a standard. Now, this standard, it's good for production, but it's in today's world, we have a globalization which destroyed the specific and the natural system, which is non-temperated, and microtubules resonance, which are not temperated, shows exactly this. In our brain, in our system, in our body, we don't have temperated. We don't have half tone or tones. We have less than half tones, quarter of tones, and so yes, I'm here. So what I want to explain is this. No, thank you. What I want to say this is that when we talk about music, we have to consider the music as a science. It's an architecture. Its construction is built according to different principles. Thank you very much.
Alex, thank you very much. Thank you very much, everyone, also, because we are unfortunately out of time. I think it was a great session. It was very inspiring for me. Thank you, everyone, for contributing. I think we could do that for a very long time. Anyway, so thank you. And yeah, the curtain falls and all questions remain open for the moment. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good
Thank
one.
you,
Have a
everyone.
good day. Have a good night.
Everybody.
Bye-bye.
Feel free to reach out.
Bye-bye.
Alex, I love your work.